April 7th, afternoon meeting of the City of Monterey Architecture Review Committee. My name is Zoe Carter and I'm the chair. We have with us Sarah, Jennifer Cleary, Fernanda, Christy Sabdo, Chris Schmidt, and I think that's all the staff we have today. And if you could do a roll call, please, that would be great.
Absolutely. So we have Chair Carter.
Here.
Vice Chair Blue.
Here.
Committee Member Hunter. Appears to be absent. Committee Member Ostavar.
Here.
Thank you. Committee Member Pauly is absent. Committee Member Schmidt.
Present.
Thank you. And Committee Member Tregenza.
Here.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So we are going to open the consent agenda, which for today will be the approval of the March 3rd, 2021 minutes. And I will take a motion on that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda for the minutes from the last meeting.
Is there a second?
Sorry, could you first ask if there's any discussion on the minutes?
Oh, I thought we did discussion after the motion.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it says, ask if any member of the commission or committee or public would like to discuss a consent item. If not, make a motion and second.
Oh, I guess if they want to take it off the consent agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody want to pull anything off the consent agenda? Okay. Would you like to make a motion then?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for the minutes from the last meeting.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Shelley seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Okay, thank you. So I have Chair Carter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Blue.
Aye.
Committee Member Hunter is absent. Committee Member Ostavar.
Aye.
Thank you. Committee Member Pauly is also absent. Committee Member Schmidt
Aye.
and Committee Member Tregenza.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to open for public comments for items not on the agenda. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak, they can do so at this time. Would you mind announcing how we can call into our meeting and have the public participate, please?
Absolutely. So we encourage members of the public to join our public meetings via Zoom Gov, as it is a secure service that will connect you live with no lag time. The meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey with up to 10-second delay and Comcast channel 25 with up to 90-second delay. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. To join the meeting using Zoom from a computer or phone, use the link or the phone number listed on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. Since the meeting has begun, you will find the agenda under the Recent tab. To join by telephone, please dial 833-568-8864. If that number does not work, there are others posted on the agenda, again at isearchmonterey.org. The webinar ID for this ARC meeting is 161-914-9563. If prompted to enter a participant ID, press pound. Detailed instructions for using Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To provide public comment, please raise your hand in Zoom, or if you're on the phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute yourself when called upon. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. Please turn off your TV or computer speakers or go into another room while connected by phone, as background noise interferes with the broadcast. Public speakers will be called upon in order of raised hands. The chair has designated a 3-minute time limit for today's meeting and will show a countdown on the screen. Also, please note that the chat function never mind, the chat function is off and should be off. Thank you.
Okay, great. So do we have any members of the public who would like to address the Architecture Review Committee about items not on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none at this time, we will move on. If we do have anybody who joins us later who would like to, we will listen to their public comment. We are going to open the first public appearance item. We're going to have staff give a presentation, then we're going to go into questions, and we'll have the applicant make a presentation, then we'll have public comments. So we'll start with our staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just share my screen. My name is Chris Schmidt. I'm a Senior Associate Planner for the city. For those of you who are some new members I haven't presented to before, welcome to the ARC. We're happy to have you here. So moving on to the presentation. So yes, we're looking at an architectural review permit for a property at E32 Helm Street. It is a one-story addition that was referred to the ARC by the Old Town Neighborhood Association. This type of project is typically eligible for administrative review. And in this case, when we went through that process, the neighborhood objected to the design, and then here we are today. So staff's recommendation is to consider whether design changes are necessary for consistency with the Old Town area plan. And I'll get more into that in some later slides. But for now, just some background information. So here we see the project site. It's in the Old Town neighborhood, zoned R36. Has a general plan designation of medium density residential, which is typically is really zoned for multifamily, but a lot of our three areas have lots of single family homes. So in this case, there is a small single family residence, which the applicant is proposing to add a fairly substantial addition. So here we see, this is the table that's taken straight from your staff report. If we need to refer back to any of these development standards, we most certainly can. So here we see the proposed site plan, and I will point out you can actually see the existing footprint of the current home, current configuration, and so you can see it's a fairly substantial addition. Yeah, and if you did check your email more recently in the last few days, the applicant did update the plan to provide some more finish details and a landscaping plan. Here's the existing floor plan and then the new building area. So again, it's a pretty modest, small home, and the applicant is going to add quite a bit of floor area. Here's the new configuration. Note that there is a large deck on the plan left side and at the front of the home, and the applicant is proposing outdoor seating, kind of dining area, barbecue area, and then there will be 2 more bedrooms, an office, an extended kitchen, and dining area. This is the existing front facade. I know that there's probably been a little bit of work since this photo was taken. I think that applicant had constructed new fences, which the city does not require permits for. But I just wanted to show, this is the existing form and the front facade at least. So moving on to the proposed elevations, with the front elevation at the top image and rear on the bottom. You'll see the new addition, which the applicant is proposing, this shed roof addition, which I called in the staff report a reverse shed roof. It's kind of like a butterflies type of roof addition, and that's the term the applicant used, and I agree with that term as well. And then you also see that same addition at the rear. The applicant is proposing new doors, lots of new windows, big, large window forms and glass doors to bring in lots of light in the house. And I'll also note there's at the top of the new addition, there's a pretty large window that would let a lot of that south light into the home. Here are the guide elevations, and you can see the applicant has shown where that new addition begins. So the applicant is proposing to continue the existing gable form of the existing home back towards the garage, and then the bottom elevation shows that new shed roof addition. And again, and as I mentioned, lots of large windows and doors. You can also see the painted wood canopy that is proposed, and there are some conceptual drawings that I'll show on the following slides that you can get a better idea what those are supposed to look like. So this is the actual color scheme that the applicant has updated. He's got the black canopy and trim, the black doors and casement windows, and then trim throughout with the white horizontal siding, and then this green glass door at the front. There's one. So there you see that now existing fence as well, just for comparison. And then the applicant, as I mentioned, also updated the plan to include a landscaping plan. And I did recognize a lot of these plants. They are generally drought tolerant plants. He's going to send a list of those plant names to me just to confirm that. But I think they're generally something that staff could support. And then I typically like to just list the materials and details that I had already mentioned. So painted horizontal siding, similar to the existing condition, painted white, roofing that would match, black casement windows and doors, or frame rather, redwood decking, again, black posts and canopy, and then the barbecue seating area. Okay, so moving on to the findings. So if you had not noticed that this staff report did not bring a resolution forward because of the neighborhood contesting of the project. And I really wanted this to be a discussion about the project's consistency with the findings and with the Old Town Plan. And so, going into this project, staff was generally supportive of it. I think with some of the alterations that the applicant made over time, including these canopies, the black painted canopies really softened that new reverse shed roof addition. But ultimately, I think that the neighborhood association was really against the design, and I think staff wanted to really leave it up to the ARC to consider whether this is something that would be consistent with that plan. And I'll get into that detail on the following slide, what that plan's requirement is. But starting with the first set of findings, so the first set is a proposed siding form, mass, and architectural style are appropriate. Staff was able to make that finding that the siding was appropriate. It meets the development standards. The setbacks are generally pretty substantial. They're not right on the required setback line, and there's still a bit of a yard kind of surrounding the home. The massing didn't appear to be oversized with something that could happen with a much taller roof or something like that. It does retain a lot of elements of the original style, as I mentioned, with the gable and the exterior siding. However, the new shed roof form is not something that's very common in Old Town. Shed roofs in general are very common, but this kind of butterfly shape is not super common. And on the following slide, I'll get into the Old Town character, which has to do with the style of the surrounding area of homes on the block face on both sides of the roadway there. Moving on to the next finding is that the views, privacy, and living environment are not unreasonably impaired for the surrounding property owners and residents. Staff did identify privacy impacts with a neighboring property owner and the applicant, and that neighbor worked it out. So the applicant ultimately moved a window away that I think alleviated some of that neighbor's concern. And I've not since heard that they have any other issues. So staff was able to make this finding that the project does not unreasonably impair views, privacy, or the living environment. The next finding is that the project must be consistent with city plans and design guidelines. It is consistent with as I mentioned, the development standards. It's also consistent with the single family design guidelines. However, again, the Old Town character of the project is in question. And I do want to, on this following slide, show some of the goals and programs from the Old Town Plan area, and then I'll kind of go on a virtual tour of the surrounding area so we can really see some of the homes that are nearby. So again, this is probably one of the main findings that the ARC will discuss today. And then lastly is essentially that all of the materials and finishes and all the other features are appropriate. This project does utilize a lot of those features that are existing and generally found throughout the neighborhood in terms of the siding and the color scheme, et cetera. The only other thing that I would ask if there was an approval of this project or the return to the ARC is that the applicant selected some light fixtures that they would have on the exterior of the home. So goal one of the Old Town Plan is essentially that pre-1950 structures essentially be retained and have the character of the surrounding area. And so that's kind of essentially what goal one is looking for. We want to look at it in terms of the appearance, the design, mass, scale, proportion, setting, and layout. And then this next program, it's essentially basically that we could make the finding, and I don't think that there is substantial evidence for this, but perhaps the building has been modified so much that it no longer has the architectural character to basically be required to have this Old Town character. And that's through modifications to the building, and I just haven't really found any evidence just in the city record for this site. This structure was not identified as historic. It appears to have built sometime in the 40s. The historic survey for it basically says that it perhaps was moved to this location in the post-war era. So it's just not clear. But I did see multiple records that the building was built in 1942, and it's just not clear if this is the original building that was there or if something was rebuilt in this location. But I don't think that's enough evidence to decide that the building has been modified so much that it's not required to be up to this Old Town character standard. So I did want to show, this is one of the attachments on the staff report. This is the Old Town Neighborhood Association, I think president or one of their board members drew what they thought this design should be modified to as more like a bungalow style. And it is very similar to the surrounding area. A lot of homes in this neighborhood have this design. And I will show you after the following slide, the little guided tour, and you'll see this. And then I just wanted to show a side-by-side comparison showing, how much of a change this would be from the current design, and whether this is the route that the ARC would recommend. So bear with me for a moment. Switch over to Google Earth. Okay, so this is the home. This photo was from 2017. So again, it's not the current condition. I think these trees have since been removed. But to its right, there's a what appears to be a multifamily building. It's hard to say whether that's kind of the character of a pre-1950 building. I didn't look up the date that structure was built, but this design is very similar to the neighborhood association suggestion, as is this one, and very many of them down the block have that similar bungalow feel. They don't have a ton of architectural distinction. They're generally large gable boxes, which is if the intent of the area plan is to have this design, then yes, that type of design I think would be supported by staff. Words. And here's the home in question. So that really concludes the presentation. Again, the staff recommendation is to consider whether design changes are necessary. I think this is one that personally I think could go either way. It's not a design that I find is so far off, but again, it is certainly not this bungalow design that the neighborhood strongly desired. But ultimately, it's up to the ARP to make that decision and determine whether changes are necessary. Yes. Thank you very much. I'm available for questions, and then I believe the applicant have a presentation to give.
Thank you so much, Chris. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Chris, did the Old Town Association write up something for you with their objection?
It was in the packet.
Okay.
Yeah, there was just an email in the packet. It was
Okay, there was nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
no, correct. Yeah.
And he also included his picture, right, that you showed us, Chris?
Mhm.
Correct.
And
The
was
type-
this taken by a vote of their board, or how did they decide that the neighborhood association didn't like the plan?
I don't actually. All right, I thought I was muted. I don't actually know if they made a vote. I spoke to two members of the board, and they did not clarify whether it was an entire board decision. They did take some time and let me know they would contact, have some correspondence with the board, but I'm not entirely sure it was the entire, neighborhood association board's decision.
Chris, do you know if they're going to be presenting?
I don't think that they will be.
Chris, this is Patrick. Thanks for your report. Really well done. While you have this slide up, I just want to point out that the solution that the Old Town Association came up with these hips that kind of stick out, personally drive me crazy. I see that all over this neighborhood of just, it's obvious that somebody just punched through the roof, added a second story, or converted an attic into a space. In fact, I used to live kitty corner backyard wise to this house on 326 Monroe. So I know this neighborhood pretty well. And I think this is not very radical of a departure. I think it's a really nice design. The reverse slant on the extension is, different. I don't know, I wouldn't call it radical. And then the pergola, or whatever you want to call this, like, awning thing that sticks out that's black, and the color black is pretty a little edgy too. I think it's really nice. It's going to be a nice addition to this neighborhood. My question is, since this isn't a second story addition, is the only reason the ARC is considering this because of the association complained about it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they made note that they rarely make these referrals as well. In the last few years that I've been with the city, I think there may have been one. I don't remember entirely. But I think that they're fully expecting the design to really reflect that old town character, and this just didn't fit for them. And they can certainly appeal that decision too if the ARC decides that they want to approve this permit.
Chris, it's Shelley. Do you know if the Old Town Association, did they review the color scheme? I noticed the color scheme with the black and the white and the green door different than what's in the packet. Do you know what color scheme they reviewed, or is the black and white the revised plan? Or color?
Right, they only saw the previous color scheme with their referral.
I think the house looks beautiful. I can understand their concerns about the roof line being so different. Change is difficult for some people. I have a little concern about the color fitting in, the black and the white. The black does seem very jarring compared to what's surrounding in the neighborhood, just from the little schematic you just showed us, the little Google Map thing. The color scheme in the plan in the packet seemed to fit in a little bit better with the surrounding neighborhood, in my opinion. And I was just kind of wondering what color scheme they reviewed and whether that had any bearing on their decision or their concerns.
Sure, and I think that the overall form of the building was their primary concern. They didn't seem to have really any comments about the color scheme. I didn't get any comments regarding this proposed color scheme.
I just would also add, Shelley, that Google map that we looked at that Chris showed us was from 2017. So there could have been some change. I haven't been up to that neighborhood recently, but there could have been some changes in that. Maybe Patrick can tell us if there are changes in the colors of any of those.
Yeah. I just wanted to, sorry, before we continue, a reminder that right now we should only be asking questions. I know that Patrick and Shelley, you did have good questions, but let's try to limit it to the question and not go into discussion or commenting or giving opinions yet until we hear public comment.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Chris? Okay. Then we will go on to, does the applicant have a presentation for us?
I do have a presentation.
Great.
Let me share my screen. Let's see if I can do this right. Sorry. Hopefully I'm doing this correctly. Let me know if I'm not. Can everyone see that? Is this?
We see a red circle. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So my name's Kelly Locke. I'm the architect and the owner of 832 Hallam, and I'm also the primary resident. Chris did a great job of showing the context of the neighborhood. I just wanted to point out here, this is on Monroe Street looking up Pelham. So Pelham slopes up quite a bit. And that little house right there is Pelham Street, 832 Pelham, right there. Chris already covered this, but these are the houses this around me. This one directly to my east. This is looking the other direction at Spanish style at the end of Pelham. Pelham dead ends here at Monroe. This across the street, we looked at that. This is my neighbor to the east, and her house sits close to the property line. So there's quite a big gap between her house and my house. This is a double lot as well. I'm sorry, this is a 1.5 lot as well as mine is a 1.5 lot. So they're quite large. And there's a big distance between us. This is house is right across the street from me. So some of my design objectives I wanted to go over. I recognize there's no distinctive historical style to the house, but I did want to maintain it as a single family residence in a multifamily zone. I wanted to preserve the house. And I especially want to preserve the scale and the form of the existing house. And the character of the existing house. So I do want to preserve this. Well, I'll probably be replacing most of the siding, but I would keep the same siding pattern, but I'd be doing it with cement board siding, probably hardy board, but keeping the same pattern of the shiplap and then the vertical boards along the ends of the gable. And then in addition, I wanted to keep it a low profile project. You've seen the floor plan. This is the existing house. And then the new addition wraps around the existing house with the new deck connecting living spaces to the front. Now I was lucky because I had a 25-foot side yard on the west, which has beautiful light. As the sun comes around from the south to the west, you get great exposure along here. And given it's Monterey and it's a foggy climate, I wanted to get as much light as possible into the house. So I decided to move the public spaces, the living spaces over to the west side to pick up on that, take advantage of that light. Move the bedrooms to the east side where it's much darker and light is not such a critical issue. This front piece here is the original bay that sticks out in the front, which was a bedroom. Now I'm making that the foyer, the entrance in the foyer for the house, and making it the central axis that goes through the house. And the new development will be symmetrical about that central axis. And the massing sort of turns into thirds. The bedrooms are a third, this portion's a third, and then the new addition's about a third. And it's a symmetrical design. I want to really take advantage of this western and southern light and have a very bright and open living spaces. So I lifted the ceiling. And by lifting the ceiling, I was able to create these clear story windows. And the great advantage to that is as that western light comes in, it's reflected by the ceiling, and it bounces off the ceiling, and it's a very beautiful, makes a very beautiful diffuse light throughout the space. And so that's really, really important to me to have that. And then the focus of the room is opening up through sliding glass doors onto the deck and a wall of bougainvillea vines outside there. This is looking back the other direction, so you see the little triangular window. So this is looking back towards the front of the house with the French doors and the dining, the sliding glass doors that go throughout onto the deck. Yeah, here I want to point out, I wanted to point out the canopy. So the whoops, excuse me. The canopy is solid over the entry to provide protection from the rain. And on both sides of the canopy becomes a trellis, and I plan to grow vines up on these trellises, and it gives a really nice protection from the southern light. For this is a bedroom, the main foyer, and then that'd be the dining room. And then here's a picture of how the deck wraps around. A picture of how the deck wraps around the front of the house, connects the living spaces to the front entrance and to the dining room. And this is a wall of bougainvillea, of like 6 different colored bougainvillea for that lounge area. And then beyond that is a outdoor dining situation. And here I wanted to show that I've hidden the fencing. That the driveway, I'm going to break up the concrete, and it'll be like a flagstone sort of concrete look with decomposed granite in between. And because the site drains from the west to the east, it'll provide a pervious surface for all the runoff and take care of all the urban runoff issues that are always a problem. So it will percolate water right down through it. Also wanted to point out that the foundation walls would be covered with concrete pavers. And then this is a street view. These 2 trees are existing. They're big locust trees. They're like 50 feet tall. The tree that was in the middle was diseased, so the city took it out. So it's kind of nice now that these 2 trees frame the house from the street. This redwood picket fence is already installed. And then beyond, you can see this is simulating an olive tree. And this is simulating a large acacia tree. And then along the wall will be the purple hopseed shrubs with vines between the purple hopseed shrubs. And I just wanted to show a before and after, so you can see how I've trimmed off the overhang on this bay and made it into that, but it maintained this entire form of the building. I'm going to maintain the horizontal siding, and then up above it's a vertical clad board, so I'm going to maintain that with cement board siding. This window comes out, and then that becomes the central doorway and entrance into the house. I wanted to show some other single sloped roofs within the neighborhood. These are all in close proximity to the house. This is kind of similar here, where you have a single sloped roof. It allows them to have transom windows to bring light into the space with a canopy in front of it. So that's kind of a very similar assembly of elements. So there are others: single slope roof with clear story windows, single slope roof with clear story windows, single slope roof here with clear story windows. So there are some similar roof designs within the neighborhood. So I was kind of inspired in terms of the exterior finishes. I was kind of inspired by this house. It's nearby. It's quite beautiful. And they do have the black windows with the white horizontal siding. I thought that was a pretty good comparison. Another one that has the black windows, white siding as a comparison. The site plan you've seen, I just wanted to add a bit to it. So you can see the extended gable roof here, the new roof slope along here, and then this would be the canopy that wraps around. It's open trellis on this side. This is solid for the entrance, open trellis on this side. Then this is a solid canopy roof, which helps a lot with the drainage from the windows up above. These are a wall of bougainvillea along here. It'll be a drought-resistant garden with mostly black mulch. And again, the hopseed shrubs along here with the vines in between. That's the acacia tree, that would be the olive tree. And then the rest of these plants are all Australians, which are really beautiful, pincushion and other Australians, which I really like, and they're very, very drought resistant. And then, so here are some of the trees, the planting materials, the olive tree, the acacia tree. This is that purple hopseed. Can't get that. Sorry. So that's the purple hopseed along the front and the trees. These are the 6 colors of bougainvillea vines, and then the rest is pretty much Australians, shrubbery, a mix of drought tolerant shrubbery, and then some typical ground covers. And that's about it. Yeah, we've seen these. Yeah. So that's my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? You left us speechless, Kelly.
Oh, that's good.
All right, we're going to open this up for public comment. So can we go over ways to join our meeting, and then we will take comments from the public.
Great. And once again, to join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone number listed on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, toll free, then enter the webinar ID, which for this meeting is 161-914-9563. To provide public comment, please raise your hand in Zoom, or by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. I do see 2 people in the 2 attendees in the meeting right now, but neither of them have their hands raised. So once again, to raise your hand in Zoom, there is a button to do so, or by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and let us know you want to comment, and then *6 to unmute yourself. And I still see no hands raised, so I think it's safe to move on.
Great, thank you. Then we will close public comments for now, and we will open this for committee member comments. Would like to start?
I'll start. I think it looks like a great design. To me, it has a 1950s feel, so it seems to fit what Chris was saying. But I agree with Patrick. I think the design is very nice and will look good in the neighborhood. There's a lot of variety in the architecture of Helm Street, and this seems to me to fit in. And with the minimal amount of information that Old Town Neighborhood Association has provided and no participation, I think we just need to support the plan as is.
Patrick, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Kelly, for your presentation. This is an exciting project. Hats off to you and your work. It's going to be easy to spot the architect's house in this neighborhood. Gets built forward, but I think it's a really nice addition. I know this neighborhood really, really well. It's kind of a hodgepodge. There was a lot of projects that got done before there was an architectural review committee, unfortunately. So I'm glad we're seeing it, but I think it's adding that the clear story windows, to the west side, and he showed my daughter's school, Larkin School was another good example, and there are a lot of single slope roofs in this neighborhood. I think it's a great project, and as far as colors you chose, I mean it's pretty black and white. I know the Victorian on Van Buren that you were talking about. That's one of our favorite houses. Beautiful example. Yeah, I've got no problem with this.
I'll just say I'm the daughter of an artist and I appreciate things like this and the green door and the whole thing. So I think it's beautiful and really well designed, and I think it will add more character to the neighborhood. So, and a sea of beige.
So I've got a question for staff or for you, Zoe. I've never come across a situation like this where it hasn't been approved yet. So what do we do? Do we motion to that the ARC approves it and then the city approves it, or how does that work?
I think that's a great question for staff. I don't know that we've ever had a situation like this before. Maybe Fernanda can help us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So that's right. This was brought to you today as to consider the project, and there was no resolution attached. But you are allowed to make a motion to approve or deny or continue the project. And it would help staff if you talked about the Old Town character, because that was the finding that staff was looking for input. So if you can make a finding for that, I think it's finding number 3, that the project is consistent with the applicable plan. That will help staff, and then next time we can bring back a resolution on the consent agenda for you.
And
Okay.
I'll add that we do need you to make all of the findings, and so of course I don't think I just want to make that clear. I don't think that the ARC has any other specific issues, but please correct me if I'm wrong, and I can pull those up too if you need a refresher of what those findings are.
I think that would be helpful, Chris, for sure.
While you're doing that, I did have a couple of questions as well. Generally, I really appreciate the design and the presentation. I think it's really nice that it was extremely thorough. The fact that the applicant is both the designer and the resident says a lot about what they're doing here. Were there any? It sounded like maybe there was one neighbor complaint that was addressed, and I'm guessing there haven't been any other neighbor complaints.
That's correct. Yeah, there's a neighbor, I believe it was east plan right, who has a shared property line. Their backyard basically kind of faces where the garage of this property is, and I think they just had some minor privacy concerns, which were addressed by moving a window, and I think also changing the floor plan around a little bit to alleviated some of that concern.
Great. And generally, I mean, I think given that there are some concerns, I think it's worth just reviewing and discussing. I don't actually have the sort of butterfly effect, and the clear story seems logical. It does not seem to me that out of place. That's not something that I would consider to be out of place. In fact, it is something that adds a little bit of edginess, which I think is appreciated. There's having some design character and changes to push the envelope a little bit in the neighborhood is going to be appreciated. Being respectful of the historical character does not mean it has to be a cookie cutter match, right? I think that's important as we're discussing, does this fit that general character? And so I'd agree, given the examples we've seen, that a lot of this does kind of relate to that character. I don't think it's too far-fetched in that regard. I did have an immediate kind of reaction to it, though, that was, whoa, what's the context? And so I'm glad that was shown, because that to me was just the immediate reaction I had. And so I imagine there's some of that from others. And if there's anything, if I'm being kind of more nitpicky on this, I think while generally I really like large trellis and having that effect, it does seem to numb a little bit the hierarchy on the facade and that entry. And so, Kelly, I was just hoping that maybe you could talk about that a little bit. I do appreciate that the entry has a solid there instead of just the trellis moving all the way through. But that's something that maybe is often done on these most buildings and kind of historic buildings. There tends to be a really clear understanding of where that entry is, and that's very visible, as opposed to something that's more like a loggia that you would find on a public street or facade. And the reason you have that uniformity is that you have multiple entries. I do think the gable at the front there helps with that, but the just kind of movement of that trellis all the way across negates that a little. It doesn't, it's not something, it's something I had to sort of settle on. It doesn't, immediately shock me out of appreciation for this, but it's something I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, well, initially I just had a cantilevered trellis over the bay, the front entry bay. But then I like the idea of the scale of extending that and wrapping it around, just sort of helps tie it together. And then because it was facing south, it also gave me some good shade from that direct south light. So I felt it kind of softened up the facade and kind of tied the volumes together a little bit as it wrapped around the corner, and as it wraps around to the west, it gives a nice water protection over those sliding glass doors, which will be like 16 feet wide, 8 feet tall, and it's really good to have a bit of coverage over that, so you don't get leakage or you don't get a lot of water washing, on those windows. So it just sort of tied it together for me a little bit better, and I think it felt to me like it's more of a porch now, and that contextually there are porches across the street and around the neighborhood, so it kind of felt like a bit of an abstraction of a porch, a bit different. I like the way it integrates into the landscaping on the right side, because there's no deck there, so I kind of like the overlap between the architecture and the landscaping, kind of tying together. That's sort of the general rationale for doing that. I think that the trellis portions could be wider apart, bring to not be quite so dense. I can make it less dense, I think would be helpful in terms of seeing the forms beyond it.
Yeah, thank you. I do really appreciate porches in these neighborhoods. They're really undervalued, and I think it's extremely important to have this kind of open feel to your community. While I think some of the planting, you're planning it to sort of screen out, that's going to be less important in that regard to saying hi to neighbors going by and such. But I do appreciate that. Yeah, I don't really have too many other comments. I just, as someone who likes to try and hear out concerns and see if there's very small things that can be done, is if there's something, I think they might be seeing this trellis more so than the building. If you imagine this gone, they might actually not have objected to the building because this looks very kind of modern, and in some ways the trellis hides the building. But I generally, again, I do appreciate all the elements that you're trying to do, just in that sort of thread of trying to appeal to some of the concerns. Is there some way that perhaps you could address that by, I don't know, creating some hierarchy with that entry of that trellis and that porch? I like very much the trellis on the left. I don't have any comments. It's a very hard one for me to comment on, because your design is trying to cover that. It's doing one big move. And so by asking, is there a possibility to change that? I'm asking to change kind of your big move there on that. But the one on the right seems, again, you're trying to balance, but maybe you don't need so much balance on the front in order to achieve what feels a little more like what's in the neighborhood. There's usually you don't see this much trellis in the neighborhood, right? Which is okay, but typically they're going to be just covering places where you might occupy. There's kind of a more of a reason like that might make it feel a little more like a neighborhood building.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like the frame going all the way across and the column coming down into the landscaping. I like that quite a bit, but it certainly lighten up on the trellis on the right side, so you would see more of the building. But I do like the continuous frame across the front. I don't know, it just seems to have a little elegance to it, and keeps the symmetry. I like the symmetry because I've set up the central axis at the front door. So the symmetry to me is kind of acknowledging a lot of the houses around the area, that porches are pretty much symmetrical about the front entrance. So, but I appreciate that comment. Maybe
it's really, I don't have, that's the only thing that I sort of caught in my was just maybe that's what they were seeing, that distracted them from the building actually being not that far away from, I think, the character. It's the only thing that I could see that maybe is a little bit different from the surrounding, but otherwise it does seem like a really fantastic addition and improvement to the area. I like that you're trying to add some edgy elements to it. The planting, I think that's really, as long as you're not doing anything that's highly invasive, that's kind of your judgment. You may regret the bougainvillea a little bit in the future, but that's just there, you can take over.
Yeah, right. That's true.
And yeah, generally I think it's a really good improvement. I don't have that much of a challenge with the black and white. It might seem stark to some people, but especially with the surrounding plants and things like that, it'll end up looking lovely. I did notice, I think you have asphaltic tiles for the roof still planned. It's generally, I think this is a chance these days to improve as much as possible towards fire code for buildings. So any step you can do in that regard, I think is very welcome to the neighborhood.
I could speak, as Fernando was asking, to why it fits with the neighborhood plan. If I could try to, so as I heard Chris, there you go. 1950, there it is. So what I see in the existing house is a 30s, fisherman's bungalow, not a 1950s house at all, not a mid-century modern house. And I think what you've designed is much more in keeping with 1950 and a mid-century modern. I live in a flat roofed open beam ceiling that was built in 1950 up on Franklin Street. So I think as far as the Old Town area plan, what you're doing is updating a 30s bungalow to that 1950 standard. Well, it says all development building alteration pre-1950 buildings should be matter of Old Town characters of those pre-1950 on the same. Okay, well, okay, it just, to me, it's like, it's not like you're making it look like anything radically modern. It's just, it's keeping in with that kind of 1950s mid-century feeling. And yeah, so that's all I had to say. And hopefully that will appease the Old Town Association. But and I agree that the pergola or the overhang is radical, but it does, it kind of ties it all together, and it's a beautiful design element, and I'd like it to stay symmetrical. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I think it's a great project.
I think we need to have a piece about how it fits into Old Town in our motion for approval. Is that correct?
That would be
correct.
better.
Okay, so it's not just in discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or whatever the motion is, we need to have about, I was gathering consensus that we were going to make a motion for approval from what I'm hearing. So if we're going to make a motion for approval, we need to have something about how it fits in with the Old Town character. I think that was the only finding we needed to make, right, Chris? Was there another one?
Chris made the rest of the findings in the staff report that you can just copy if you want. The only one that was in question was the third finding about Old Town.
Okay. Were there any other committee member comments about this before we try to take a shot at a motion?
I have a question, I guess.
Sure.
I've been part of neighborhood associations, and I know, that they sometimes they have certain members that can sway things in one direction or another. But it is important to kind of hear them out, and I don't know. Generally, I'm leaning towards approval. I sometimes it's just a slight nod to them in the design if it were to shift very slightly, and I don't know exactly what that would be. Maybe it's something in that entry that. But again, I do want to leave that to the owner and architect slightly. So I guess I'm asking, is there a way to approve and suggest that if the architect has some way they think they could modify it slightly to help with that? Is there a way to approve while still making that suggestion?
So you can approve with conditions. The condition that you mentioned, it's a little open-ended to let the architect figure out how to work with what you were saying. So that's not a typical condition that we see in motions. Usually they're more concrete conditions that are actionable. You could make a motion that the architect make modifications that can later be reviewed by staff. But if you would like to, if the ARC wants to see the modification, then a continuance of the item would be more appropriate.
So, Fernanda, did the OTNA ask for anything specific to be done?
It's whatever Chris showed. They wanted that symmetrical roof. that gable roof.
Oh, so they wanted the hip roof. That was just a suggestion.
Yeah, they also didn't show a trellis at all, right?
Right.
So if we're taking it literally, which I think something with that large of a roof wouldn't be appropriate. It would probably start to block views and things. So I think we can probably agree that there's a number of the things on that might not be appropriate either. And so how are we trying to at least accommodate some of those concerns, while generally feeling like this has a good character and largely should be approved. So I'm trying to thread that needle a little bit.
Yeah, I understand. It sounds like you're trying to basically give them a little something to appease their concerns, but yet, what they've asked for is a complete rejection of what he's come up with, and I disagree with that. So, from my standpoint, I think we should approve it on its own merits and see what happens if it gets appealed or not. But I mean, I'd hate to, turn a beautiful racehorse into a camel because we're just kind of trying to, appease both sides of everybody. So that would be my 2 cents.
I agree with Patrick in that they're also not here. I mean, they're aware of the schedule. They could have participated in the meeting and provided the input that's being discussed, and they're not here to do that. And so I don't think we should be guessing at what their concerns in terms of how to address the details of this might be, because they're not here to do it. And I think, I was surprised at how little was in the document that they provided, that was in the packet. There just wasn't much there. So I'm with Patrick. I think we should vote to approve it as it is. And if they have any problems, they can appeal it and then make their points then, because they're not able to do it now.
And I want to take a moment and make a few points. And so I'll first state that the representatives of the neighborhood association that I did speak with said they had a prior engagement that could not attend this meeting. Make that clear. Another point is the original design that they saw and provided their original referral actually did not have the front trellis or really trellis in general. They did see that revised design and said they, it didn't change their position that they wanted to see the roof completely changed. So I think the issue is that they prefer a gabled roof. I think with that, if you have more discussion about whether additional changes should be made, I think the neighborhood association could still, like we said, appeal the decision, and maybe I'll ask Fernanda for clarification. But if we brought a resolution on consent, is the neighborhood association also able to make their comments at that time if the ARC has a motion to approve today? And that's not clear to me, actually.
They could pull
Well,
it.
if we, yeah, they can pull it off consent and discuss it.
And it still seems like a gray area to me of who actually voted on this objection, like if it went to their board or who objected it or how many people in the neighborhood association or what the deal was. Like there's so much gray area in this objection to this proposal without having anybody from their neighborhood board here. I don't know.
I think I'm actually even a member of the Old Town. I think you probably are too, Bob. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I never heard about this, so it's
It didn't come up in the newsletter or any of the emails they send out.
Yeah, I mean, I had it when I first saw the kind of reverse slope, it was like, whoa, what's going on there? But then when I saw Kelly's drawings of the inside and I realized he was trying to bring light into that room, it totally makes sense. So yeah, redoing it with a regular gable or hip roof or whatever, I just think it's going to start looking like, second story additions like all over that neighborhood. So I think we should approve it as planned and see how far it goes. I mean, that's what we can do today, at least. And I don't have the packet in front of me, so I can't make a motion because I just don't have all the paperwork, but I'll second a motion if somebody wants to make one.
Is there any other discussion?
I think I'm the only one that's raised some, potential issues or ways of modifying. I'm in agreement that I think we can approve this. I would just, to Kelly, just say, these are your neighbors, and if you think there's something you could do perhaps to that entry that might help them, I would at this point trust your judgment on a minor modification to that you think might help with that. But otherwise, I'm sounding like I'm mostly in agreement with the rest of our board. Is there any other board member present that wanted to speak? I don't think we've heard from everybody.
Kelly, did you have anything?
No, I appreciate all your comments.
Oh, I said Shelley, sorry.
Oh, Shelley, okay.
I just wanted clarification. The association, did they see the trellis or did they not see the trellis? Because I am looking at the pictures and I actually think that if their concern is with the roof line, the trellis actually helps break that slope up a little bit, at least from the pictures I'm looking at. So I just wasn't sure if they saw it with the trellis or not. I thought I heard they didn't at the meeting, but then some of the members saw it with the trellis. Am I understanding that correctly?
The trellis design was sent to them.
Okay. I personally think the trellis kind of breaks up that slope that I think that I'm gathering they were concerned with. And thank you, Kelly, for including pictures of the black and the white, because I just was not, from the pictures that Chris was showing, the Google Maps from 2017, I didn't see a lot of that, but the black and the white in the area, the pictures that you showed did help me. So thank you. I personally think it's a vast improvement over what's existing there now. And I think it's a beautiful design. And so I guess we're just trying to decide how to proceed on this, because are we just approving, or not approving, but are we just saying that we find that the roof line is consistent with the Old Town Area Plan? Because that seems to be what their main issue was. Or
Yeah,
Right. In Chris's staff report, he was asking ARC input on whether the design meets Old Town character. And the main point that the Old Town neighborhood made was that the roof line did not seem to meet Old Town character. So that's what the ARC should discuss today. And if the ARC is ready to make a motion, they should incorporate that finding into the motion, as well as all the other findings in the staff report.
So do you want me to take a shot at a motion?
Love it.
That we approve 832 Helen Street Architectural Review Permit ARP 20-0241 for preliminary and final architectural review of a single story addition to an existing one-story family dwelling, that the Architectural Review Committee looks at the design as a high quality, the design is a high quality that is harmonious with the surroundings, consistent with the general plan as well as the neighborhood plan, with regard to the roof line or the rest of the overall design. Does that do it? Fernanda, do you think that covers it well enough?
Yeah, if I understand correctly, you're saying that the proposed roof line is in character with Old Town.
Correct. with the
Okay.
general surroundings,
That
of the
does it.
neighborhood, and yeah.
Yep. And are you going to copy all of the rest of the findings in the staff
Yeah.
report?
Oh, yeah, and then we could just say, and also consistent with the findings of the staff report.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So can we get that motion read back to us?
Hardest part of this whole meeting.
I know.
The Jennifer or Sarah, since you're taking notes, could you read it back?
I have some general notes written down and I put just in summary, I'm sorry, I can't type as fast with all of it. So I'll have to go back and review that it was consistent with the Old Town plans. And I referenced the roof line in there and then the other findings listed in the staff report. And then I believe it's Vice Chair Bluth that put the forwarded the motion, and I just didn't catch who the second was, so I was going to ask that.
Tregenza.
Tregenza, thank you. And do we need to do a roll call vote on that? Okay, would you like me to do that now?
Bob, does that sound like that was right for the motion?
Sure, I was just, trying to go off the top of my head from the discussion that we just had with Patrick, and so, yeah.
Okay, and is that me what you need, Fernanda?
Yes, we can bring back to the next meeting on consent the resolution approving the project
Okay,
with the finding.
okay, and then if Old Town Neighborhood Association wants to come make comments, if their board wants to come make comments, they can. I just want to have on record that they can bring some of their members and pull it off consent and make comments at that time.
Yes, they can.
Okay, perfect. Yes, let's do a roll call vote. Oh wait, is there any discussion on that?
This is just the vote for that it's consistent with, the roof line is consistent with the neighborhood character.
We're approving the project and saying that it's consistent with the Old Town character.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and get that roll call vote. So I have Chair Carter.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bluth.
Aye.
Committee Member Hunter is absent. Committee Member Ostavar.
Aye.
Thank you. Committee Member Polly is also absent. Committee Member Schmidt.
Aye.
And Committee Member Tregenza.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good job. That was good. That was a really good discussion. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for everybody for that discussion. That motion carries unanimously, and the resolution can that be appealed within 10 days, or do we have to wait for the resolution?
Let's see. Your motion can be appealed from today, starting today, within 10 days.
Okay, so the motion for approval can be appealed within 10 days from today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, let's go on to our second item, which is consider 1 Old Golf Course Road, 1298 Mark Thomas Drive, sign permit application SI 21-006 for the replacement of 1 vehicle-oriented freestanding sign. We will have a staff presentation.
This is Christy. Sorry, give me 1 second. My screen just got small. Okay. Can you see my screen yet?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can. Oh, great. Yeah. Okay, good evening. My name is Christy Sabdo, Associate Planner with the City of Monterey. I'll be presenting 1 Old Golf Course Road for replacement of 1 vehicle-oriented freestanding sign. The applicant is Chris Merrill with Northwest Signs. And staff is recommending the approval of the sign permit to allow the replacement sign at one Old Golf Course Road. It also has a couple different addresses, 1298 Mark Thomas and 1430 Mark Thomas. The site is located on Old Golf Course Road at an intersection with Mark Thomas Drive. You see the sign is currently on a boulder, and there are multiple entrances to the site, but this one is noting the entrance at Old Golf Course. The applicant submitted a site plan showing there are 6 existing signs on Mark Thomas that are visible from the right-of-way. The sign guidelines and ordinance state that only signs that are visible from the right-of-way and adjacent properties are subject to sign permit review, and so the internal signs are not subject to this permit. So the application is for replacement of that boulder sign with this sign here. The sign includes the logo with the Hyatt Regency Monterey. It's set on an aluminum cabinet painted gray. The cabinet is 37.5 square feet, set on a 10.5 square foot stone base with a brick cap. And the total proposed sign area is 37.5 square feet. It would be 8 feet in height, which is the max allowable for under the sign ordinance and guidelines. And the sign is shown here. They're also proposing halo illumination. So the logo and the sign, the lighting would be focused on the cabinet, and it would be a halo illumination so that the sign can be viewed at night. So I'll just discuss the consistency with the sign guidelines. Really, it's only inconsistent with one of the guidelines. In terms of maximum sign area, it's consistent with that. The hotel spans 1,500 linear feet, allowing a maximum of 750 square feet in sign area. And they're only proposing, with all of the 6 signs that are existing and the replacement, they would only come to 173.5 square feet. So they're well under the max allowable. The one that they're inconsistent with is the number of signs, freestanding signs. So there should be no more than 1 freestanding sign per street frontage. And currently there are 6. They're replacing 1 of them, so there would still be 6. But in terms of all of the other guidelines, this proposal is consistent with all other guidelines, including the illumination guidelines. So in terms of the sign ordinance findings, the proposal achieves the purpose and objectives of the sign ordinance. The sign will not detract from the scenic qualities. It has a low profile. Sign will be made of natural materials, stone and brick. The sign cabinet will be painted earth tone colors, a warm gray. The proposed replacement sign is not wholly consistent with the sign guidelines. As I said, it only allows 1 freestanding sign per street frontage, and it has 6. However, the frontage of Mark Thomas Drive is extensive. The hotel has multiple entrances, so it warrants more than 1 sign. And given that the proposed freestanding sign would replace an existing freestanding sign, the new sign will complement the natural landscape, not standing out. So the inconsistencies are appropriate. And the proposed freestanding sign is largely consistent with the general plan as it supports the operation of a commercial use. So the sign is located in the right-of-way, not on private property. So they require a sign encroachment permit, which they would have to get after the approval of the sign permit. And there are certain findings that are required, which I'll summarize here. So due to the special circumstances of the site, due to location and surroundings, the strict application of regulations deprives the privilege to post the sign for public view enjoyed by other nearby properties under the same zoning. So in response to that, the hotel's not visible from the intersection, and it's up higher in elevation. It's about 270 feet from the intersection, and it's screened by vegetation. So along this entrance at Old Golf Course Road, this is the primary means for identifying the hotel's entrance. And Old Golf Course curves quickly and rises. So placing it on private property, that sign location on private property would be less effective and less visible. The second will not constitute a grant of special privileges inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the same vicinity and zone which the applicant's property is situated. The special circumstances of the site that I just indicated warrant the approval of a sign encroachment permit. A sign encroachment permit shall be granted because just placing it on private property in an alternative location just wouldn't be feasible, and it would be less visible and less effective. A sign encroachment permit shall be granted because the site is unique, including the topography and location of the hotel setback from the public right-of-way. There are like standard conditions that need to be placed on the permit for a site encroachment permit, including ARC has conducted a design review pursuant to the sign ordinance. The city traffic engineer has reviewed the signage and says that it meets the safety standards, and they'll have another chance to review it when they submit their sign encroachment permit. And the sign is in compliance with the sign ordinance and guidelines, and that is if it's approved by the ARC. And then there's a special condition just ensuring that they obtain their sign encroachment permit. And staff recommends the approval of the sign permit. And I'm available for questions. And Chris Merrill is on Zoom with us today if you have any questions for him.
It was unclear to me, is this one sign or 6 that we are approving?
So they're only proposing one sign, and it would replace the Boulder sign that exists on Old Golf Course. There's 6 existing signs, but they're only wanting to replace one of them on Old Golf Course Road.
Is that the one at the main entrance
Yes.
that they just redid with the
Yes.
fancy new brick?
Mhm. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a view of that in the packet that I thought was really helpful. Maybe we can pull that up if that's possible.
Let's see. Is it one that I had in my
I
presentation?
don't think so.
Let's see.
Yeah, it was kind of photoshopped into that view with the wall.
Oh, okay.
Drive by there every day.
So yeah, they have some entryway features now that are right here. I guess I should have added pictures of the site. That would have been helpful.
Yeah, it was in the packet, so I think we have.
Okay.
If we looked at that, we have enough information there, which is really helpful.
Are there any other questions? I see it now.
Actually clarifying, which maybe I think it was Chris Merrill can maybe answer it. I'm in looking at the renderings. It looks like it's stucco background, but I heard metal painted. So just some clarity on the materials. I know the stone base, and then behind that that the sign is on.
Yes, it's a aluminum cabinet painted.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Christy? Okay. Did the applicant have a presentation?
No.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I guess I have a quick question. Hopefully, if there were a bunch of new improvements that were just made, it sounds like on that wall and things like that, is there a reason it wasn't done at that time?
I'd like to ask. Oh, go. Go ahead.
I
Chris.
am not sure why it wasn't done at that time. The signs are always secondary.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole entrance is brand new. It's really nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
I live right behind there.
I guess they, like you're suggesting, it was forgotten until now.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we will open for public comments then.
Thanks so much, Chair. Once again, to join the Zoom meeting from your computer or phone, use the link or phone number listed on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864. This ARC webinar ID is 161-914-9563. And currently, I see no attendees in our meeting. We can give it a little bit of time, but there hasn't been any for this whole item, so we might not receive any this time.
Okay. We will continue on, and then if we receive any, we'll listen to them. So we'll close public comments for now, and we will open for committee member comments. Are there any committee member comments on this one? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, as I hinted at, I mean, generally, something like this would be better if it were integrated with a new entry design. I think there is a missed opportunity that it could have just been included in that entry wall in some way that would have been really consistent and felt a little less like what I really want to guard against in Monterey is it starting to get a strip mall feel as you can get very easily. That can sort of start to seep in by just kind of having things that look like very standard things that you might see in areas other than here. So there's something that, you know, had character on a rock that becomes less character. And so that's the only comment I really have. And I think it could have been handled easily by just integrating it in the updated design. And I think that's unfortunate that it wasn't. But I like generally the sign and the glowing background. Those are all really nice and appropriate changes. Chris, do you know, is this something that was mandated by the hotel to have something in a specific look that couldn't have been integrated with their wall or anything like this? Did they have very specific recommendations? I know a lot of hotels do.
Nothing specific. That is their new logo. But yeah, nothing specific.
Is there any reason why it couldn't somehow be integrated at this point in that entry wall that would fit with their needs?
Into the wall, the way that they have it, the rock wall is really hard to install a sign on and be straight, level, just because it's and a power issue.
Right. Yeah. I mean, had they planned for it?
Yeah, they could have planned for it better, but yeah, I think it was an afterthought after they got that nice rock wall done, and then they have that old rock sign,
which wasn't very visible. I mean, so it's understandable that there's a need to upgrade that.
Right.
There are so many Hyatt signs around there, though. I mean, there's one as you come off, what's that, right by the highway. There's a huge one. And then there's ones coming all the way down Mark Thomas. I don't know. I understand what you're saying because I live over on close to North Fremont, and those are just everywhere. It's like,
yeah, it's just having, you know, if you can edit and reduce, you start to reduce the clutter that you're seeing in your life, right? So if it could somehow have been integrated with the wall, that would have been preferable. But here we are. Is there any? I don't. Maybe one of us can pull up that view. I think that would be like I guess it was the applicant did did that rendering with it next to that existing wall. Just having that context is helpful. But I don't know if anybody else has any.
I have it.
Okay.
Do you want me to pull it up?
That'd be great. I think it's nice to see that.
Wait, can I pull it up? I don't know if I can share my screen. Oh, yes, I can. Okay. Do you see it?
Yep, that's it. So I think that's a really useful rendering. I again, I don't have strong oppositions to this. It's basically some comments of ways that maybe this could have been improved, and in general, when things like this are done, how it could be improved. I have no further comments.
All good points. Very good food for thought. Anyone else? Thanks, Fernanda. All right, is there a motion?
Do you want me to do it, Zoe?
Sure.
Okay. We approve 1 Golf Course Road, 129 Mark Thomas Drive, sign permit application SI 21-006 for replacement of 1 vehicle-oriented freestanding sign.
Is there a second? Tregenza, seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Sure. So Chair Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Blue,
Aye.
Committee Member Hunter is absent. Committee Member Ostavar?
Aye.
Thank you. Committee Member Polly is also absent. Committee Member Schmidt
Aye.
and Committee Member Tregenza. Oh, Committee Member Tregenza, can we get a verbal confirmation?
Oh, sorry, I was unmuted. So yes, aye, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, so that motion carries unanimously, and this can be appealed to the Planning Commission within 10 days. Thank you all for a great meeting. Are there any other committee member comments tonight? No. Are there any staff reports?
No, other than what's in the packet, not really. There were just some council meeting items that may be of your interest. There was a extension of the water allocation to 591 East Franklin, and a resolution accepting the general plan annual report, and the community-wide greenhouse gas inventory presentation from AMBAG, and no items for the next ARC meeting other than the resolution for the 832 Hallam project.
Great. All right, with nothing else, we will adjourn.
Okay.